Boom, got it. How is the idea of suns from multiple universes refuted? The Vedic literature informs us that within the universe there is one sun, which is moving. The Western theory that all the luminaries in the sky are different suns is not confirmed in the Vedic literature, nor can we assume that these luminaries are the suns of other universes, for each universe is covered by various layers of material elements, and therefore, although the universes are clustered together, we cannot see from one universe to another. In other words, whatever we see is within this one universe. In each universe, there is one Lord Brahma, and there are other demigods on other planets, but there is only one sun. And I believe that's 6. Sorry, reference will be Canto 5. I can send this presentation out to everyone if I haven't already, so you can have a look at it in your own time too. And we discussed this, the movements of the sun, moving on a huge wheel, Manasatra mountain. Here's another depiction of the Earth and the different heavenly planets that are above us. Mahaloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka, and Satyaloka. So Bhumandala, does that make sense? So Bhumandala is in red. I think this is like considered to be like a relative drawing, but Bhumandala is in red. And then above us is the sun. A yojana, 1 yojana is 8 miles. So the sun's 800,000 miles. Like that, all the way up. So the sun, moon, nakshatras, or stars, then Venus, then Mercury, then Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Saptarishis, or the 7 rishis, planets of the 7 sages, Dhruvaloka. Here's a scale diagram. Again, I can give this all to you to study in some detail. This is a picture clustered together of 30,000 pictures taken from one spot at night. So even though we don't see stars moving, if you just stood there and took 30,000 pictures, you put them all together, this is what it would look like. So you can actually see that the stars do move. They're in orbit around Dhruvaloka. Okay. Subterranean heavenly planets. In these 7 planetary systems, which are known as the subterranean heavenly planets, Bilaswaga, there are beautiful houses, gardens, and places of sense enjoyment, which are even more opulent than those in the higher planets, because the demons have a very high standard of sensual pleasure, wealth, and influence. 524.8. Bhakti Gamya, does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, so it's even more. It's considered that there's more, more opulence, more sense enjoyment because of that aspect of the demoniac. The desire for the desire among the demons to really enjoy.
Is that why they're called heavenly planets, even if they're so they're heavenly because there's more sense enjoyment? Obviously, they're and they're subterranean because they're below the plane of the Earth, but they're also because it's run by demons, so there's a demoniac element. Is that it? Yeah.
Yeah, so it'll be that says, it's for the demons, so it has a higher sense of standard of sensual pleasure. That's 1. Second is subterranean because it's below Bhumandala. That's 2. And then what you said, yeah, it's heavenly. It's considered to be heavenly because of the sense enjoyment. So there's sensual delights, houses, gardens, affairs, those types of things.
How does one? I mean, yeah. Oh, sorry.
How'd you get there?
Yeah. How does one take birth in such a place? Because it seems like it's such a mix of demoniac and heavenly, and who takes birth there?
He's actually got it. Here, hold on. 24.8. Uh, 24 summary. Demons and Rakshasas live in these lower planetary systems with their wives and children, always engaged in sense gratification and not fearing their next births. The sunshine does not reach these planets, but they are illuminated by jewels fixed upon the hoods of snakes. Because of these shining gems, there is practically no darkness. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of like an underground Vegas club. It's artificial light. There's no sun. There's no sense of time. There's all these kind of enjoyments. And then you're just there to just absolutely, you know, hammer your senses.
Is there any form of punishment there?
Not that I've read, no, because it was heavenly. The only places that have it's the only time that they feel fearful is when the way they die, a Sudarshan chakra comes to kill them. That's the only time they ever experience fear. Other than that, they're just enjoying all the way through.
So is there no disease there?
I mean, technically, it's interesting because you have to juxtapose it with the Bhagavad Gita. So Bhagavad Gita says a Brahma Bhuvanala Loka, where it mentions that from the lowest planet up to the highest, it says from the lowest planet up to the highest there's birth and death. But sometimes you read descriptions in the Bhagavatam where it says that on the heavenly planets, there's no disease. And sometimes you even read descriptions that there's no disease and that there's no old age. So, but then you read in the material world, there's always birth, old age, disease, and death. But just to give a bit of a kind of like from what we can see described in the heavenly planets, there's a youthfulness that always remains, and there's no real indication of disease there. It's just that they go enjoy, burn off their karma, burn off their punya, and then they have to return back to Earth or wherever they go next. This is subterranean heavenly planets. Like, here's a few descriptions of some. I'll go through a few descriptions of some just so that you get an idea of what happens there. By the way, you know what I was talking about earlier about the eclipse? It comes up in 24. Rahu cannot, being afraid of the Lord, Rahu cannot stay in front of the sun or moon for more than a muhurta or 48 minutes. The phenomenon that occurs when Rahu blocks the light of the sun or moon is called an eclipse. That's Rahu. Let's look at a few of these subterranean heavenly planets so you get a bit of an idea of what kind of happens. So beneath this Earth, there are 7 other planets: Atala, Vitala, Sutala, Talatal, Mahatal, Rasatal, and Patal. Yeah, so 7 planetary subterranean heavenly planets. The width and length of those 7 lower planetary systems are calculated to be exactly the same as those of Earth. This Earth is talking about Bhumandala. I'm just skipping to some down some. It's got here the sense enjoyment of the demo. Can you read this okay, or shall I make it a bit bigger? Let me make it a bit bigger. But I want to do it like that. Yeah. So it's got here the sense enjoyment of the demigods is sometimes disturbed, but the residents of these planets enjoy life without disturbances. It's interesting, isn't it? It says the sense enjoyment of demigods, they're sometimes disturbed, right? It sometimes gets interrupted. But here, the residents of these planets, they don't have disturbances. There's no disturbances. Whether in heavenly planets, the lower planets, or the earthly planets, people are engrossed in a temporary material happiness, forgetting that in due course of time, they have to change their bodies according to the material laws and suffer the repetition of birth, death, old age, and disease. A Vaishnava is always anxious to give all such bewildered materialists the real happiness of spiritual bliss. Okay, so in the imitation heavens known as Bilaswaga, there's a great demon named Maya Danava, who is an expert artist and architect. He has constructed many brilliant decorated cities. There are many wonderful houses, walls, gates, assembly houses, temples, yards, temple compounds, hotels, and residential quarters for foreigners. The houses for the leaders of these planets are constructed with the most valuable jewels, and they are always crowded with living entities known as Nagas and Asuras, as well as many pigeons, parrots, and similar birds. All in all, these imitation heavenly cities are the most beautifully situated and attractively decorated. Parks, gardens in the artificial heaven surpass in beauty those of the upper heavenly planets. So it's interesting. It's actually considered that the beauty in the subterranean heavenly planets are even more than the upper heavenly planets. The trees in those gardens embraced by creepers bend with a heavy burden of twigs and fruits and flowers, and therefore they appear extraordinarily beautiful. That beauty could attract anyone and make his mind fully blossom in a pleasure of sense gratification. Lakes, reservoirs with clear, transparent water, agitated by jumping fish, decorated with many flowers like lilies, kavalayas, kalaras, blue and red lotuses. There's pairs of chakravakas and other water birds nest in the lakes and always enjoying a happy mood, making sweet, pleasing vibrations that are very satisfying and conducive to the enjoyment of the senses. Since there's no sunshine in the subterranean planets, time is not divided into days and nights, and consequently fear produced by time does not exist. Yeah, so this is the subterranean heavenly planets we're talking about. Many great serpents reside there with gems on their hoods, and the effulgence of those gems dissipates the darkness in all directions. So the light comes from the gems of the hoods of snakes, not the sunshine. The residents of these planets drink and bathe in juices and elixirs made from wonderful herbs. They are freed from all anxieties and physical diseases. Okay, so that confirms that. Does that make sense? Was it you, Rajanath Gopal Prabhu? You asked about disease?
Yeah, that's super helpful. Thanks.
Yep. They have no experience of gray hair, wrinkles, invalidity. Their bodily lusters don't fade. Their perspiration, they sweat, they don't smell bad. They don't have wrinkles, no gray hair, no invalidity. They're always lustrous. They don't get tired. And they don't lack energy or enthusiasm because of old age. They live very auspiciously and do not fear death from anything but death's established time, which is the effulgence of the Sudarshan chakra of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So everything in the subterranean heavens is nicely arranged. There's residential quarters, pleasing atmospheres. There's no bodily inconveniences. There's no mental anxieties. But nevertheless, those who live there have to take another birth according to karma. Persons whose minds are dull cannot understand this defect of materialistic civilization, aiming at material comforts. One may make his living conditions very pleasing for the senses, but despite all favorable conditions, one must in due course of time meet death. The members of a demoniac civilization endeavor to make their living conditions very comfortable, but they cannot check death. The influence of the Sudarshan chakra will not allow their so-called material happiness to endure. So what happens is the Sudarshan chakra comes and it enters the area when you're about to die, and pregnant wives of the demons have miscarriages due to the fear of its effulgence. So it comes like a big bright disc to kill. Yeah, another planet. It's in Atala. The son of Madanava, Bala, created 96 kinds of mystic power. I'll just summarize this one. I'll summarize all the planets. Create different types of mystic powers. There's different types of women there on the subterranean heavenly planets. Swarini, Kamini, and Pumshchali. The Swarinis marry men from their groups. Kaminis marry men from any group. The Pumshchalis change husbands from one to another. If a man enters the planet of Atala, these women immediately capture him and induce him to drink an intoxicating beverage made with a drug known as hachaka, cannabis indica. This intoxicant endows man with a great sexual prowess, of which women then take advantage of for enjoyment. And then the women will enchant him with attractive glances, intimate words, etc. And then the man, when he's there, he thinks that he's stronger than 10,000 elephants. So it's an illusion that's created. It's an illusion that's created in these heavenly planets, and this illusion, alongside not having any sense of time because there's no night, right? In casinos, they don't have blinds, because if the players perceived sunrise, then they may stop, like that. So if you don't have clocks available and there's not that sense of time, you really get involved with it, and then therefore they're going to bet more and take more risks. So yeah, these subterranean heavenly planets it's like a real illusion. And the illusion is that he thinks himself to be God, ignoring impending death. Below that, Shiva, he also have a residences there, and he lives with his personal associates, ghosts. Lord Shiva, he engages with Bhavani, and they produce living entities there. And then also as part of that, there's a river that's created called the Hachaki River. And with this chemical combination, they create or produce gold. And then the demons who live on that planet, they decorate themselves with various ornaments from that gold, that's made from that gold, and live very happily. So Shiva and Bhavani are there. When they exchange, it creates a river. Then that combination creates gold. And then that gold's used by demons to dress themselves up with jewelry. Yeah. Just at the end of that, Purple Prabhupada writes, apart from this, if one takes a hint from this verse and learns how to mix mercury with bell metal properly by heating and melting, then one can get gold very cheaply. The alchemists of the medieval age tried to manufacture gold, but they were unsuccessful, perhaps because they did not follow the right instructions. Below that planet is Sutala, and Bali Maharaj is there. And it's just a very opulent place. It doesn't say too much about what happens there. It just talks about Bali in terms of his personality, or what happened with him. One who is embarrassed by hunger or falls down or stumbles, chants the holy name of the Lord even once, willingly or unwillingly, is immediately freed from the reactions of his past deeds. Calm is entangled in material activities, face many difficulties in the practice of mystic yoga and other endeavors to achieve that same freedom. I don't know if it continues speaking just with the theme of subterranean heavenly planets. I don't know if it describes any more. Oh, it talks more about, okay, Bali, yeah. I think it goes into more. Okay, here's more hair. Yep. Okay, so you get the idea, right? Like that's kind of the mood or the vibe of the subterranean heavenly planets.
Could I ask a question if you don't
Yeah.
mind?
Yeah.
Basically, in the first description of the heavenly planets, like the first text we read, I think it mentions that they're temples. So I'm just wondering, do you know any details of who those entities are worshipping? Because I thought that the subterranean heavenly planets were places where they didn't believe in God, or so I don't know if you know any details about are they impersonalists or something like that?
I haven't come across them doing any worship. If anything, it could be that they're worshiping themselves because they're so into themselves and into trying to play God. But there's no I haven't come across any descriptions that on a subterranean heavenly planets that they're worshiping a particular transcendental deity.
I guess they on one of the other planets they also worship Lord Shiva. I wonder if they're worshiping Lord Shiva as well in the more recent description. I guess that's some form of worshipping of an entity of a deity, but I'm just assuming that maybe if Lord Shiva resides there, I wonder if they see him as like their deity, or I don't know.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I know that for one of the planets that that Shiva's on, that some of these are kind of his friends and associates. I mean, even on this planet, you have certain temples in certain countries, and then you go into the temple, and it's just a picture of a man, like that, or a picture of it could be a picture of a particular type of guru, or a particular guru. We know from the descriptions of Bhagavatam that on different planets within Bhumandala, that those people on different planets, they worship different aspects of God. So we know that there's some significant worship there. But in terms of the subterranean heavenly planets and worship, if there is, if there is some worship, it's so underwhelming that it's not been included in Bhagavatam. So it may be a few people here and there that have been preached to, or if there's any preaching that goes on there at all. But no, I haven't come across any descriptions of who they're worshiping in those temples. I wouldn't be surprised if it's themselves, or whoever's the most popular in that room, that type of thing, or even just certain material possessions or objects.
Well, thank you for clarifying. And do you mind? I've just got another question about Nagas as well.
Yeah.
Because I always get confused about how to what's the word, perceive the Naga race, because I feel like they're generally associated with inauspiciousness or evil or things that are demoniac, but at the same time, like we've got Anantashesha as well. I was always a bit confused because I feel like they tend not to be depicted well when you read Shastra and things like that. So I don't know if you have any idea of how to perceive the Naga race. Are they in the demoniac side, or is it just like one of those things where it depends? You probably have good and bad, or I don't know.
Yeah, just Nagas be a type of Nagas are just considered to be a type of species. Whenever Anantashesha is introduced, as the whole, there's actually a chapter on Anantashesha here. Anantashesha is usually, when I've come across introductions of Anantashesha, there's often a very clear, you're always left with a very clear impression that Anantashesha is not ordinary. Like there's always a very clear impression between Anantashesha and what you've described. So Yeah, I think you're right. I think in general, Nagas aren't always necessarily depicted as very pleasant, maybe, or attractive to be around. But Ananta Shesh is always introduced as somebody very special, as we'll see. The summary of the glories of Lord Ananta. In this chapter, Shukadev Goswami describes Ananta, the source of Lord Shiva. Lord Ananta, whose body is completely spiritual, resides at the root of the planet Patala. He always lives in the core of Lord Shiva's heart, and he helps him destroy the universe. Ananta instructs Lord Shiva how to destroy the cosmos, and thus he is sometimes called Tamasi, or the one who's in the mode of darkness. He's the original deity of material consciousness, and because he attracts all living entities, he is sometimes known as Sankarshan. The entire material world is situated on the hoods of Lord Sankarshan. From his forehead, he transmits to Lord Shiva the power to destroy this material world. Because Lord Sankarshan is an expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, many devotees offer him prayers, and in a planetary system of Patala, all the Suras, Asuras, Gandharvas, Vidyadharas, and learned sages offer him their respectful obeisances. The Lord talks with them in a sweet voice. His bodily construction is completely spiritual and very, very beautiful. Anyone who hears about him from a proper spiritual master becomes free from all material conceptions of life. The entire material energy is working according to the plans of Lord Ananta, Dave. Therefore, we should regard him as the root cause of the material creation. There is no end to his strength, and no one can fully describe him, even with countless mouths. Therefore, he is called Ananta or Unlimited. Being very merciful toward all living entities, he has exhibited his spiritual body. Shukadev Goswami describes the glories of Ananta Dev to Maharaj Parikshit in this way. Yeah, so then you have a whole description, a whole chapter on Lord Anantadev.
I just got a quick question on the residents of the hellish planets that we just discussed. So after
heavenly?
Sorry, heavenly, subterranean, yeah. Heavenly planets.
Yeah.
Sorry. Where, after they take birth. Oh, by the way, what we just discussed, was that the residents of one of the subterranean heavenly planets, or was that all seven? Is it like that all seven? Is it like that just one of them?
It's going off in 10 minutes. We had an introduction to the residents of all heavenly planets, and then it introduces those on Atala, Vitala, Sutala. Now, let's see. I'll just go up because I might have skipped past. I don't remember if it also describes residences on the other four, but I'll just check.
So just to clarify then, so there are 7 subterranean, there's 7 hellish planets, right? And then 3 of those, Atala, Vitala, Sutala, are those the subterranean heavenly planets, which are 3 of the hellish planets? Is that right?
No, I haven't introduced any hellish planets to you whatsoever.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're all subterranean heavenly planets.
Those 7 are subterranean
7
planets. Okay, cool. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So all those 7 planets, there's all sense enjoyment. In chapter 24, there's introductions to the other heavenly planets, but they're not in as much detail as we saw on Atala, Vitala, and Sutala. So they talk a little bit about who's the leader there, some species is there, but they don't go into as much detail as what we saw in Atala, Vitala, and Sutala. I'm presuming the reason why is because once you've kind of got an idea of Like there's an idea of what the subterranean heavenly planets is about. Prabhupada's described it in the purports. And then there's not too much of a description of what happens on the others, but you get the basic idea of them. So does that make sense so far? So let's go back to our Krishna diagram. Vedic diagram. What we got? Vedic cosmos. So I'm just going to get this Krishna chart back up. Let's see where we're going. But to above, then we'll go. You can see this, yeah?
Yes.
So earth, then we went underneath. Heavenly, 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 heavenly. These are all heavenly. Heavenly, 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 heavenly. These are all heavenly, heavenly, heavenly. See, when I first saw this, right, I thought that these are heavenly, this is earth, and all of these are hellish. That's what I first thought when I first looked at it. But if this is heavenly, that's earth, and then these are heavenly, and then there's another set of hellish planets, which is covered in the last chapter of cosmology. So yeah, I hope that makes sense. I think there's another image here as well. I mean, here's another image just depicting basically a similar thing. Atala, Vitala, Sutala, Talata, Mahatal, Rasatal, and Patala. And then there's 28 Narakalokas, which are the hellish planets. Okay. I guess what we could do. No, we could just go for the 5 more. Okay. This is a bit about barley. 2 kinds of opulence. There are 2 kinds of opulence. One is one which results from one's karma as material, whereas the other is spiritual. A surrendered soul who fully depends upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead does not want material opulence for sense gratification. Therefore, when a pure devotee is seen to possess exalted material opulence, it is not due to his karma, rather it's due to his bhakti. In other words, he is in that position because the Supreme Lord wants him to execute service to him very easily and opulently. If an advanced devotee is favored by the Lord with opulence, it is not a material opulence, but a spiritual opportunity. Okay. Snap back because I need to show that to somebody. Glories of Ananta. The entire material world is situated on the hoods of Lord Sankarshan. From his forehead, he transmits to Lord Shiva the power to destroy the material world. This great universe, situated on one of Lord Ananta's thousands of hoods, appears just like a white mustard seed. It is infinitesimal compared to the hood of Lord Ananta. So this universe is on one of Ananta's thousands of hoods. And it's just the way it looks like it's just like a white mustard seed. It's interesting, isn't it? It's like this universe is massive to us, but to Lord Ananta, it's just like a white mustard seed. In its creation, the living entities are given a chance to close their business as conditioned souls. When they misuse this opportunity and do not go back home, back to Godhead, Lord Sankarshan becomes angry. The 11 Rudras expansions of Lord Shiva come out of Lord Sankarshan's eyebrows due to his angry mood, and all of them together devastate the entire creation. When males and females touch each other's bodies, their lusty desires awaken. This is confirmed in the Vedanta Sutra, Janmad Yasya Yata. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has commented in this connection that the word Adi means Adiras, the original lusty feeling which is born from the Supreme. However, spiritual lust and material lust are as completely different as gold and iron. Only one who is very highly elevated in spiritual realization can understand the lusty feelings exchanged between the Radha and Krishna, or between Krishna and the damsels of Raj. My dear king, I have thus described how people generally act according to their different desires, and as a result get different types of bodies in higher or lower planets. You inquired of these things from me, and I have explained to you whatever I have heard from authorities. What shall I speak of now? King Parikshit inquired from Shukadev Goswami, my dear sir, why are the living entities put into different material situations? Kindly explain this to me. So that's a question. I think we'll close out and then go one more time into the meeting. And then we'll just conclude with the hellish planets. Okay, so yeah, just jump back into the meeting again, like what you did before.